Let's dive into the world of tabletop gaming and painting with the Tippy cast. From rolling dice to mastering brushstrokes, we're here to fuel your passion. Join us for insights, inspiration, and endless creativity. I'm Chris.
And I'm Daz. So, Chris, what's on the table?
Well, Daz, I've been finally painting those Rumble Slam models. I've completed the Clownfish and the Emo Nemo, and both of the Merfolk from the Reef Ragers team. I'm really happy with how they've turned out, particularly with the Merfolk, and I'm going to be putting a picture of them on my Instagram at Tippy Club Gaming. I think they'll look really good with a gloss varnish on them to kind of bring out that wet look.
Oh, definitely.
Cause it's like I've decided the fish and the Merfolk they need gloss on them. I've still got the cart crab to do, but he's a pretty big one. I want the crab shell to look right, so I'm just kind of taking my time on that one. And I've got Officer Radians and Lenore, and I'm also going to be doing Makara the Destroyer after Cart Crab. So I'm kind of queuing up my next couple of projects on there. What about yourself?
Well, finally got the Knolls finished off. I've just they're finished. I've just got to stick them to their bases and that sort of thing. But I like them to be fully complete before I take some pictures. Mm-hmm. What else have I got? The Siberian veterans are now also near completion. There wasn't much to them. They're in snowsuits. A majority of any sort of detail was in the guns, the weaponry, the skin. The snowsuits themselves were just, a nice little grey, then a black wash, then a final highlight of white. There wasn't a great deal to it. I've also assembled some UCM drop fleet.
Nice.
And I actually had, I bought it off a fella off Facebook, and I didn't realise this until I got it home, that I had the original Hawk Games 2-player starter set of Drop Fleet Commander. So, and funnily enough, I told, because the fella who works, was Hawk Games, and wrote Drop Fleet Commander and Drop Zone Commander, now actually works for TT Combat for Drop Fleet and such. And I mentioned it to him, and he was like, he says, I've got garages. I've got a garage full of them. But what's nice about them, instead of the resin that you get, they are sprued grey plastic. So it's taken me back to the old days of when I had to use, actually, I wasn't working with resin and I was actually working with grey plastic. So that was a nice little treat and a nice little walk down memory lane.
A lot of scratches because you forget about not using a file on them.
Oh, definitely. I mean, other than that, there's not been a great deal. Just saying, finishing up bits. Just started assembling some new bits. I've still got my Borderlands stuff that's sitting on a shelf over there, which I want to get started. But
the question is, do you have a very Hulk Hogan inspired Borderlands model?
No, and I was really disappointed in it because if like that, I would have. The worst part is the actual game is called Mr. Torg's Arena of Badassery, and you don't even get a Mr. Torg character. I was massively disappointed.
That's a missed opportunity right there.
Very much.
3D printing websites, they're where to go.
They are indeed. But I'm looking at getting into 3D printing anyway because there's lots of things that are coming out, especially like in the States. You know as well as I do with Blacksite Studio stuff. It's like gold dust over here to get it.
Yeah, I don't think Modiphius stock it anymore. I think they've got maybe one or two little bits left, but they've removed it from the Via Modiphius section. So I guess it's just like the final little bits of stock that they've got, which is a shame because I got a few bits from Modiphius for Don't Look Back. It was a lot easier to get it over here and not have to pay import and stuff.
So that's why I'm looking at getting into 3D printing, so I can, because you can buy the STLs of Blacksite. So I was looking at getting that, doing that anyway. And there's other things that I wanted to 3D print as well that I can't seem to find, or it's just going to make life a little bit easier. But
Yeah.
all in good time. All
Yeah.
in good time. But we're not talking about going in the future at the minute today, are we, Chris?
No, we are not. We are jumping into the past, and we're going to be looking at what actually got us into tabletop gaming. For me, I remember quite clearly, it was a Christmas when we got Necromunda. Growing up, we always had a cupboard of board games. You had your classics like Monopoly, we had Escalado, and we'd always name the horses after different crisp flavors by like the color jerseys that the jockeys had on, and we had like Scrabble and stuff like that as well. And my older brothers got into like Warhammer Fantasy and 40k, and I mean at the time I was probably, what would it be? I would have been six, 7. Because this is like 94. So, yeah, I'd have been about 6. And Necromunda had just come out. We got that. I got the Escher gang because I guess no one wanted to play the girl team, and if I had to be included, just give me the girl team, I guess. And it would be playing me, my 2 brothers, and one of my cousins played it as well. And we had a pretty big dining table in the house, and it was like perfect for like your Warhammer stuff. It was just a big long table you could extend it out. It's proper good dining tables that you just don't seem to get anymore. And Necromunda is definitely one of my earliest memories of miniature games, and it kind of just never really left us. There's been other things, like I had a few games of like Hero Quest, and I got Space Hulk. With me and my oldest brother would play a bit of that. And I remember one Christmas I got this. It was a weird game called Havok, and it was a skirmish game. Models looked very similar to like Tau, your Imperial Guard, your Tyranids. You got some scenery. There was some things that were sort of like dreadnoughts, a couple of like dropship, attack ship things, and you could actually buy booster packs for that in Woolworths. So I had like a couple of extra models, stuff from that, and just like I never got to really play that, because if we were going to be playing a skirmish game or something, it was going to be Necromunda. And like I say, I was a bit young for kind of like bigger games like 40k and fantasy and stuff like that. So I never kind of worried too much about that. But it's a shame just to think where my Havok stuff went. I remember the rule book came with a little comic book thing in it as well, and just well, I need to look up to see whatever happened with Havok. Like how long did the game run for? Which is
I imagine there's probably like an
cool
underground sect of Havok somewhere.
Oh yeah, there'll be some diehards keeping it alive, fighting the good fight. There always is for games. So I mean, like when Necromunda dropped, they got dropped, and then came back and got dropped again. You had Yak Tribe. It used to be Yakromunda on just like a forum, and they had like a living rule book that was going through. And I mean, I say they still do, and they've got like the updated roster stuff for the new gear. And it was a really like vibrant community that was in that, and it was great. You'd like see people painting stuff, scenery getting done. There was like monthly challenges, and like where you'd have like a specific topic to build. I remember on one it was build a water still, and I made one where it was like a moonshine still. So it was just like I had like pipes going in between different different containers and stuff, and I won the first prize for that and got to choose the next topic. I've made it was like like a vault entrance idea. I never got to finish mine. I was at uni at the time, so deadlines were closing in. But getting off topic there. There's always an underground thing for every game, so there's probably a Havok one. But yeah, after years away from the hobby, when I moved to Leeds and was going to uni, I got a copy of Twilight Creations Zombies, just a little board game.
Nice.
Where you're like building out the city and you're just trying to either kill enough zombies like per person to win. And if you die, you lose half of your zombie kill, and then you just spawn back in. You keep playing, or get to the helipad when you draw the helipad out and be the only model on the like the center of the helipad. So kill all the zombies on it, and then you win. And I remember me and a couple of my mates, we had massive games of that because I got a bunch of expansions, and we'd have the main deck of the city tiles. We'd have the decks of the expansion tiles, but the starting tile for each of those expansions would be shuffled into the main deck. And as soon as that tile, like that entrance tile, came down, you could start drawing from the other ones. And we ended up having some, like, really ridiculously big games of that, and they were like fun days then. Really enjoyed playing that. It's just a really easy, just you roll your dice, you move, roll some dice to fight. Good game. Just any amount of expansions they've done.
Nice. And that's what you need at that, especially getting into the hobby. You need something a bit. You need that thing that's going to grab you and hook you in really quickly. And I think there's a lot of games that do that. Hook you in very quickly.
When you jump into like your Games Workshop games and stuff like that, it's very rules heavy, very crunchy. They're not beginner friendly.
No.
So I'm amazed that Necromunda even drew us back when I'd got the leads, because me and the middle brother were talking about Necromunda again. Asked a couple of my friends who used to play Warhammer. It's like, oh, should we pick up Necromunda? They were both all for it, and then it was like from there where I started really building up collections of miniatures games rather than like your smaller board games like Zombies. Got like The Walking Dead after that, Mars Attacks. That's another Mandic one. Yeah, and just kind of building my collection up from there.
And that's it, isn't it? And that's where they get you. But picture, if you will, Chris, a young Daz who's lack of beard, lack of moustache, full of hope, full of wonder, and
I cannot imagine this.
You know,
mainly the without the beard and moustache. Let me just say, it's not the lack of wonder.
You know, I was but a small chap, very unrecognisable for the man that I've grown into today, and there I am. I'm sat in my living room with my mum, my dad, my cousin, two of my cousins, and my sister, and then my dad says, "Oh, would you like to play a game?" Because at the time my dad was in the RAF, and when early in sort of like that sort of point in his career, he was away a fair bit. So when he came back, he was back for like, you know, we would spend like weeks at a time with him when he came back. So I would see my dad a lot painting figures. So we lived in Germany, so he did a lot of his painting in the cellar. So I would go down there, and I would just sit there with my dad and watch him paint, because I was a young lad, you know, and I hadn't seen my dad, and I was just spending time with my dad. And then I was just talking to him about it, and I was like, "Oh, do you play with these?" And he goes, "Yes." I play with my friends, you know, people I work with. And I said, "Oh," and I was obviously asking, "Can I play?" And he said, "Well, what I play," he goes, is very, you know, very, like, it requires a lot of thought, and it requires a lot of, it can be very boring for someone so young. I mean, Christ, I think I must have been only about 9 at the time. And he said, "Well, I do have a game that he goes that me and your mum painted all the figures for. He goes, which I think that you'd really like. And he said, do you want to play it? And I said, yeah. And I said, how many people do you need to play it? And he goes, well, you're going to need, so it's going to be between me and you. And he goes, and we can see if your cousin David and your cousin Louise and your sister will play. And they all said yes. My cousin Louise and my sister weren't too fussed because obviously they weren't. My sister's 2 years my junior, and then my cousin, my youngest cousin, is a year my junior, whereas my cousin David is a year my senior. He was more interested in it. What we played was Hero Quest. That is my earliest memory of what I would consider like tabletop miniatures wargaming, if you will. Although strictly speaking, Hero Quest is, if you're not familiar with it, is more considered a miniatures board game. Because it's not, there's obviously, it's because it's not free roam. It's very, there's squares, roller dice to move. You pick a character, it's already set out, and it's more of a dungeon crawling esque board game. It's almost like, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, it's like Dungeons and Dragons for dummies. It's a very simplified, very easy way of playing a role-playing game. Here's your character, it's already set out, here's what they can do, here's the dice you need. And the rules were really easy, because it's all a lot of it's pictures on the attacking dice, and it's, a lion shield is good for defense for you. Axes are good. Well, there you go. That's all you need. Like as a 9-year-old at the time, pictures are great. And
very very little maths required. Just is it the picture that you want? It is. Well done.
And I played that, and then my sister and my young cousin got bored after about 3 turns, and then went off and played whatever they were playing. Which is fair enough. But me and my cousin stuck with it. And me and my cousin ended up playing as the other 2 characters each. So there's in the starter box of Hero Quest, if you want to call it that, there's 4 characters, and one of you plays as the games master. It's not a dungeon master in Hero Quest. It's referred to as the games master. It's been a long time. There's a barbarian, a dwarf, an elf, and a wizard. There's very little.
Right,
yeah. So barbarian, self-explanatory. The dwarf was almost like your middle of the road. He's very sturdy. He's all right in attack. He's all right in defense.
Yeah, he's like as your D&D classes. He's probably more like your fighter than any of the other combat ones.
But he also would be able to spot traps, which were present, and it wasn't. You needed to play as a team, and say me and my cousin over a period of. My dad had a 2-week R&R because he'd come back from Kuwait. He had a 2-week R&R, and we'd spent about a 4-day weekend at the time playing Hero Quest when we could, and we got through the main little pamphlet book that you get, the first one that you get about the first story, if you will. And we got through that, and after that I sort of fell in love with it, and then I spoke to my dad about it, and my dad was very much a catalyst, a large catalyst for my entry into the hobby and into the world of miniature painting, miniature gaming, collecting figures. He was doing it. He was painting figures before I was even a glimmer in their eye. And I'm 34 this year, so that says how long he's been in the hobby for. And he's old school. He's got the Napoleonic figures. And he also has Space Hulk. I mean, he had the original Hero Quest box set, all fully painted. I also do truly believe that I'm the one of the only people in the world who has a painted Cluedo set. Because he painted the figures for that. Because my dad is one of these old school wargamers that absolutely, without any question, refuses to play with unpainted miniatures, and he just will outright refuse to play you if you've got them.
I'll send all my Resident Evil stuff down to him, and he can paint all the 12 million miniatures for us, and that'll be good.
So what happened was, when I said to him I wanted to start painting, we'd moved back to England by this point. No, we hadn't. I said I wanted to start painting figures, and he thought to himself, well, look, the things I'm painting far too small, and far too intricate. He said, we'll look at getting you some Games Workshop stuff, because this was 90s Games, 90s early to just coming into the 2000s Games Workshop. This was a day when you still had the catalogue. Do you remember that, Chris?
The catalogue, yes.
The Games Workshop catalogue. My dad got a Games Workshop catalogue sent over from the UK, and we looked through it, and it was about like what a good 3/4 of an inch thick.
Yeah, they were good catalogues. You got like every model the made there. Just proper mail order sheet at the back. Fill it out, send it in, get your gear.
And I looked through it, and I just looked through, and I thought, Space Marines looked a bit boring. Didn't really want them. The Eldar, I thought, looked a little bit finicky, and I didn't really like those. And, nothing was really standing out to me as I'm flicking through, and I think, maybe there's just, there's nothing in there for me. And then I turn the page, and what do I see? Then a giant green mechanized beast with the word "Wah" written over the top of it. And I looked at and I thought, that's cool. And I saw the first miniature of Gazakul Thraka on that first page of the Orcs. And I was like, this is it. These are the guys.
That'll be the Gazgul Thraka with the kind of like the samurai looking armor, like the kind of squared armor, and he's got the flag bearer.
Yeah, that was the one. And that was
one. I've got that Gazgul Thraka. I don't have the flag bearer with it, but I picked up a Gazgul Thraka a good few years ago, and he's sitting in a cupboard somewhere.
But the Orcs stole my heart, and I was like, those are the ones. But due to my novice nature and age at the time, my dad said, look, if you want, he goes, I'll paint. My dad said, you can undercut, you can assemble them, you can base coat them, like prime them or whatever, and says, and then you can do the skin, and can fully complete the skin. And he goes, and then if you want, I will then finish the rest of it, like the clothes, the guns, the sort of more intricate details at the time,
like your fine detail, highlighting and stuff,
like the teeth, the eyes, and things like that. He would have done. And then as I obviously got older and I got a little bit more confident, I would then do that myself. And I got to a point, I think I was about 12, 30, just turning 13, where I was sort of almost doing the whole model myself. But sort of by that point, I sort of shifted more into Warhammer Fantasy, because what happened is I heard about these. There was this was back in the day. There was a 40k faction of orcs that were called Weird Boys, that used old equipment like road boars and stuff, and I thought they're funny. And I thought, this was my first experience at Kit Bash when I was 11. I thought I'll get some fantasy orc boar riders, and then I'll just put guns on them. Like that'll work in my 12-year-old brain. Also, when I'm 12, I was still without beard. But the beard.
I can't imagine this. I'm ever since was it you're playing Hero Quest? I'm imagining a little bearded man playing with the dwarf.
A small bearded child.
Yeah.
Mate, so many people think that. They go, I can't imagine you without a beard, and I'm like, yeah, I can't. And I was there. But so then I sort of I then started collecting fun. I don't know how. The Tomb Kings had sort of just come out, like this, for the first time. And I thought to myself, like, this is something that I can do start to finish, because it's very little. There's just bone, weapons, so I can do this start to finish. So I started getting those, and then my dad's always been a big fan of greenskins as well. He just loves the humour that they put into orcs, in the fantasy. Or, I mean, his love has always been the night goblins that they did for Warhammer Fantasy. They've always been up there and his favourite things to paint.
Were they the ones with like the kind of like the
black
kind of
robes.
broken wizard hat sort of style on them? Yeah, I
and they had
remember. I was thinking my brother had some of them.
And the old fungus loons, the ones that had the big ball and chain. Yeah, yeah. He just fell in love with them, and then I would paint my Tomb Kings, and because I thought I could do this start to finish, without his aid. And then one of my friends at the time, again, this was sort of like when American football was starting to find its popularity again in the UK in the early 2000s, and then naturally Blood Bowl came back into the limelight again in the wargaming community, and I picked up a dwarf Blood Bowl team, the Grudge Bearers, the original metal ones. I picked those up, and then I think so. That was sort of like the last sort of big thing that I purchased and got into, because then the teenage years approached, and I fell out of the hobby for like a long time.
As a lot of people do. I think that's just the natural way. It's no longer the cool thing to do.
No, and I fell out of the hobby for some time. And I mean, I still played Hero Quest with my dad and whatever from time to time. Or like Space Hulk, because he had Space Hulk as well. We played that. So I fell out of the hobby for some time. I mean, so basically, and then I didn't really pick up a brush again until late 2017. That's how big that gap was. And a lot of that was due. So basically, my teenage years, I spent a lot. I started playing a lot of music because I learnt the drums and I was playing the drums, and then I ended up going to work, and then girls, alcohol, going out, and then I met my kid's mum, and then had a family at like 22, and then money then became an issue. Like, I thought about getting back into the hobby because I thought, well, I'm not really going out. I'll get back into it. And then at the time, I was just feeling a bit priced out because I didn't have the expendable income, because obviously I had a young.
Getting into the hobby is quite a big expenditure. Like, it's not a case of just pick up a starter painting set. There's a lot more to it.
I mean, I was quite blessed. So when I say blessed, it was a blessing in disguise. So when I subsequently split up with the mother of my children, and moved back home with mum and dad in 2017, my dad has got a surplus of brushes, paints, and stuff like that, and like figures that he's had in his pile that he knew he was never going to touch. And I just sort of started painting to sort of just for my own mental well-being. And it was only 2017 that I picked the hobby back up again. And once a lot of the cobwebs were off and I was less rusty, my skill and confidence in painting, collecting things, and just skyrocketed. So and that's literally how recently I've gotten back into it. And now that I've gotten back into it properly as an adult, I'm not as fussed now these days about what people think about the hobby. I'm a grown man. It's like, if I want to sit in my little, my little utility room here painting figures, I'll do it. And if I want to go and play with other grown men with figures, I'll do it. And it doesn't really matter anymore. And I've now, my daughter is starting to get interested in the hobby, She's already painted a couple things. I found these North Star, Red Star, no North, yeah, Red Star Coven do these minions sort of knockoffs. They call them stunty henchmen. If you haven't looked at, and she's painted up a couple of those, and yeah, I was just thought, that's kind of what was me getting back into it. Was just me sitting in my mum and dad's cellar with my dad, watching him paint, and then just being interested in it. And I still, because my dad's old school, and this is one of the sort of it still to this day unlocks a very core memory between me and my dad. Is my dad's old school with some of his paints. So one of the washes he does, he uses an old brown oil paint, right, which he thins down with white spirit, and he uses that for his skin wash, and he still has that same tube of brown paint that he did when we still lived in Germany, and he had that before I was born, and he still has it now.
That's the beauty with oil paints; they just last forever,
and
your very little bit goes a long way.
And the smell of it mixed with the oil paint, still to this day, when I go around my mum and dad's house and my dad's painting at the end of the table and I'm talking to him about stuff, and then he's got that and I can smell it. It takes me back to that point where I was just a young, beardless 9-year-old boy sitting in my mum and dad's cellar with my dad, watching him paint figures. And it is something to sort of. It is weird when you sort of look back about where it all sort of started, because obviously when you've been in the hobby, I wouldn't say I've been in the hobby like that long, because I had that point between 9 and 14, and then I had that massive gap, and then from like 30 to now, also 29 or 27 to now, it's these last few years I've really dealt. Christ, we've got a podcast on it. How much more deep in the hobby can you be if you're just talking?
That's basically the final boss of the hobby, isn't it? Or maybe he's buying like a Titan from Forge World. That might be the final boss. But the podcast for it's not too far behind it.
No, but no. I mean, hey, if anyone listening out there, has a real core memory of the hobby, whether it's like a smell that you'll smell randomly that unlocks a core memory, or I
think I've still got a bit of Bad Art Black like stuck up somewhere right at the back of the nose, because every now and then it just that's it.
I still remember the smell of the
Citadel hex pot of the black ink. That's good. I mean, I've still got one.
Because I had a hex pot of the orc skin flesh wash that they did, the green ink they did for skin. That had a very particular smell that I could, in a Pepsi challenge, still do.
It's the like the crystal hex pot.
Oh, you see, no, mine didn't even have the flippy lid. I had the full screw off lid.
Oh, it still smells good. That
it's like potpourri for nerds, isn't it?
It really is. I'm going to keep we on the smell of paints for a while. I've got a full set of Scale Colour Artist paints. It's like tubes of paint you'd imagine an artist would use, but they're all acrylics in light moss green and olive green. They are the best smelling paints I've ever smelled. They've got a little bit of like lemon to them, or just a bit of citrus, and I absolutely adore the smell of them paints.
It's weird how we were talking about things, and next thing you know, we're talking about the smell of paint.
Like you say, core memories. I love it.
No, it's just weird, and you know what?
I think old not Chaos Red, Blood Red. The old basically the cut arms ones, like those pots. I'm just for the audio listeners, which is all of the listeners. I'm holding up some of the cut arms paints, and it's like the old Citadel ones. The Blood Red, I can still smell that as well. It is every now and then. You just get that kind of just the phantom smell.
it is amazing as well. And it's going, the whole while we're on memory lane, while we're taking a stroll down memory lane, I have in my painting cupboard, I've got a little glass cabinet, like one of those IKEA glass cabinets. And so generally speaking, when I put figures in there, it goes on like rotation. Like newer stuff goes in, older stuff comes out. Except there's one figure that stays in there, and that is so when I got back into the hobby in 2017, it's a Space Marine in there, and it was one of the first things I painted when I got back into the hobby. So it's kind of stayed in there as a point of reference for every other figure that's gone in there. And it's like I can then look at that and go, you know what, that's where I started in 2017. Again, I say started, I returned. This is where I returned in 2017. And this is where I am now. And that's nice for me because I can see that progress. Because it's great when people come by and they look at your stuff, like my new stuff, and they're like, "Oh, that's really good," and they go, what's that one? And I go, I keep that one in there for myself. So whenever I put stuff in there, I can see, well, that's where I was. This is where I am now.
Yeah.
And obviously my shelf, right down the bottom of the shelf, where my daughter's got her own little shelf in there as well, with her minions, stuff. But yeah, I think it's important as well, just from a mental health standpoint as well, to sort of. It's good because I think it's, from a mental health standpoint, you can see where you've come, how far you've come, even if it's only minimal at the time, and if this episode has sort of taught us anything, if we're going to have a takeaway from this, it's that I feel that the painting aspect of the hobby is very much about exponential growth, and it's okay. So once you've learned a technique, and then you learn another technique, and then you learn another technique, and then you learn another technique, and it's all building on what you already have. It's not like you've just got a toolbox where you go, I'll pull this out, do this. Everything is building on everything you already know, and then you start applying it the same logic different ways. And that's much like other. I think outside of our hobby, and you'll agree with this. I'm waffling a little bit. I'm sorry. There I go, spouting exposition again. But from people outside of our hobby, they just see a grown man painting a toy. But for us, inside the hobby, and I'm sure a lot of people out there will agree, and Chris will agree, and I think anyone who paints miniatures agree, it has a greater meaning to us, and it's just sort of, it's us it's like any art, really, at the end of the day. Like, artists outside of our hobby can agree, you're putting a portion of yourself onto a figure that other people can see. The way Chris paints is very different from the way I paint, and my style of painting, and it very much mimics me, and the way Chris paints will mimic him, and it's each individual miniatures painter has their own style. But
definitely your mood influences how you paint as well. It's like, if I'm particularly down and if I can be bothered to paint, I'll not want to paint, say, Cart Crab, because how I paint my Rumble Slam stuff, it's very much bright, energetic. I want to say happy.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling like everything's getting on top of us, I don't want to kind of bring that into that, so I'll pick up one of my other models that I've got sat primed, waiting to go. I might grab a Warhammer model, or maybe something like a bit of Don't Look Back, and I'll focus on like painting one of the killers or something like that. Something where I can kind of take that kind of darker aspect of things and apply it in a positive way. Something that's a lot more. There's something physical that I can look back at and be really happy with,
Yeah, definitely.
coming from something that's, I mean, not a very good place to be.
And and I think, and I'm just gonna say it, it's gonna feel like it's very forced in, but both me and Chris, we do have our own. Both me and Chris struggle with mental health, and just sort of gonna say this out there, guys. It's you ever feeling like that? Just reach out to someone. Anybody. I know that's
My
not.
DMs are open.
Yeah,
So.
just that took a bit of a turn.
Yeah.
It's just we are we're very passionate about the hobby, and it's not just a hobby. It's a community, and I think that's the important thing. And we all have our memories about the community. And do you know what? In the whole time that I've been really in the community, in the big sort of in the middle of it, when I do the events and I'm at the the expo, and to see people come together like that, I've never had any negative experience at those events. I've never had any negativity thrown towards anybody, and it's just a lovely, lovely place to be. And you do feel very comfortable in yourself. But yeah, we're sort of waffling on a bit there.
It's just people playing with toy soldiers, rolling a dice,
having a good time.
I mean, what's better than that?
Exactly.
But I just want to go when you were talking about the orcs before. That brought back a core memory, and there was a custom scenario my brothers had come up with where the kid bashed an orc. It was one of the old, were they just called space orcs? It was one of
yes.
Gazgul Thraka's boys with that same kind of samurai looking armor, and one of his arms was lopped off, and he had a plasma cannon attached to it.
Nice.
It was like one of the old shoulder-mounted plasma cannons. So that was grafted onto him, and the idea of him, he was like a robot orc cyborg thing that had been lost on Necromunda and had been taken, found its way into the hive and had been taken in by traders and things like that. And our gangs were busy having a gang fight, and this robot was sat there, and to activate it, you had to get up behind it and roll a dice for pulling basically a ripcord to start the mortar on him, and it would just go absolutely crazy. It was like scatter dice for what direction it would be facing, and it was an absolute beast for firing at people.
Nice.
And if you'd dealt enough damage to it to take its wounds off of it, then it would power down. So someone would have to go up and start it up again, and it would just kick back in at full health. And I mean, it was absolutely broken. It just but it was fun.
That's all it is.
And that was the main thing. There was another scenario that we had done. It was my cousin's gang. It got very powerful, so covertly they had to be brought down a peg. So there was another game that the middle brother had. I forget what it was called. It was another kind of miniatures board game, and it was a Key to the Kingdom. It might not have been that. It might have been someone else. But there was a creature called the Mantigroom, and it was just this huge, again, overpowered thing, and it was jumping off of the top of gantries, plummeting 12-inch down, which would have killed anyone else. But this thing's hitting the ground and running. Dice, or just a ridiculous amount of dice for tests. And to make it not as obvious that it was there to wipe out this massive Vansar gang, it would also target me or target one of my brothers. But its main target was just take out some of these high-powered things, because you just could not stop this Vansar gang.
No.
It wasn't until many, many, many years later that I was told that's what the purpose of that scenario was. But I was keeping my Eshas out of the way, keeping them back. I had Deadeye Dawn, who has appeared in every Escher gang that I've made since. And I even paint one of the new Eschers up in the same way with the yellow and pink, like alternating colour hair. And she was just there, just picking them off, and it was good. She was a really good ganger, which is why she's lasted every Escher gang I've ever run.
Good times.
Memories.
Well, we've looked back, Chris. We've sat in the present now to look forward to new and shiny. Would you like to start us off, Chris?
Yes, I will. Rumble Slam have released some new models, and they are available now. They are Forest Soul models. There's a full team and 2 superstars. The team is the executive branch.
Love that name.
And I mean, this is one that really it ties in with
the Timber Fist.
Timber Fists. That's the one. Really ties in with them. You've got there the Thorn Dryad, the Amazonian Druid, the Great Fairy, who is your Weight 3 big model, and then there's possibly in the running for 2 of my favourite models in Rumble Slam that aren't cats. The Raccoon Thief and the Dice Gobbler, which is a squirrel. Just brilliant. The Raccoon Thief, he's got a little satchel, and it's filled with tokens, and it's like tiny little versions of the tokens you get with the game, and he's holding up a balaclava, which I think for a raccoon is brilliant because they've got the little bandit mask anyway.
Great. It's a great mini.
So it's like, and it's not hiding anything. It's obvious he's a raccoon, and I love it. It's unbelievable. And the squirrel has very, it's a cube-shaped cheeks, and is holding the 2 dice as well in his hands. And again, the way the studio's painted the model and the card art itself is holding Rumble Slam dice. They've got the little stars painted on it, and it's like, I like that. It's a way to.
It's almost breaking the break the fourth wall.
Yeah. Break kayfabe, and it's like, you know. And I think Rumble Slam's a game that really gets away with doing that, because it's like I say, it's just Rumble Slam's a silly game, and that like lends itself to it fantastically.
And I also think the Dice Gobbler mini, because obviously it's holding the dice, and the raccoon's got the tokens in its pocket. I feel very much that it's almost like it's breaking the fourth wall, because it's obviously, if you want to think about it, like get a bit deep in it, tinfoil hat time. You know, these wrestlers are in the sense in their own world. We're just sort of playing them. They have no idea of dice tokens, and then there's these 2 things that just have them. And I just feel that's, if they were like, it's just breaking for me, I feel it's like a little break in the fourth wall, and I do like that.
The superstars, we have Corrit, assuming that's how you would say it, who, if you collect your dinosaur models, perfect. Velociraptor, it's got the little the slashing claws on its legs, and lovely model. The final superstar is the Naturalist, and he looks vaguely familiar. I'm not quite sure why, but he's got some style, some profile. Looks like he's a jet flyer.
Who is that?
Woo!
I feel I might fire off another one. Oh! That's a cease and desist waiting to happen.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure woo has been trademarked. I mean, he's got a 4-clover leg lock, and I can't think of what a 4-clover could have to do with leg locks.
It's to do with the Forest Soul. It's to do with the Forest Soul logo.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what it is.
You think you thought too much into that one?
Finally get a Ric Flair inspired model.
About time.
Really nice looking model. When they were showing the silhouette, was it during the Advent calendar they showed the silhouette the first time? Or was it just beginning of the year?
I think it was just beginning of the... No, it was in the calendar. But yeah.
I was kind of thinking, is it like you just see like these kind of antlers coming off, and I was thinking, is it like like a Wendigo or something that would kind of fit with the Forest Soul. Sort of like the spiritualist sort of, not spiritualist, like mythology sort of bent that some of the stuff's got, and like that kind of nature spirit thing to it. And but yeah, and I was completely wrong. Because those what I thought were antlers are branches coming out of them, and so I was quite surprised, like pleasantly surprised by that, especially since one of the more recent superstars that came out for Feral Den, he kind of has that Wendigo look.
Yeah.
So I think if the naturalist was like that, it would kind of be like champing that flavour a little bit.
I mean, I was, let's say, I said to you this earlier, Chris. I was like, for me personally, I was just a little bit disappointed that the Ric Flair inspired mini wasn't an owl, and I was kind of hoping that it was like, and still, I was kind of hoping it could still be an owl. I was kind of hoping for that, but again, like I was still pleasantly surprised. It's a beautiful mini. It just, looking at it, like even if you didn't know that it was inspired by Ric Flair, and you knew who Ric Flair was, you just look at that and go, "That's Ric Flair."
Yeah,
It's
got the big robe on and sort of like the
pose,
the big feathers off of it. Yeah, the arms out, just he takes up space, and that is definitely like Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Just when Ric Flair's about.
It is, and you know what? And we've said this before, and I'll say this till the cows come home, Chris. The sculptors and the designers of these figures that are coming out from Rumble Slam, and not just Rumble Slam, Carnival, all of the TT models that are coming out, that they're pumping out now, are fantastic, and they're so full of character.
Definitely.
And the design has become a lot more. I wouldn't say challenging. I'd say it'd be more. They're really pushing the envelope every time, and every figure that they've brought out has just been outstanding.
Yeah, they've got that perfect balance of highly detailed but not over detailed. Like the new Necromunda models, the Eshas. I hated painting the main box of Eshas because it was just needlessly detailed. And they were an absolute chore to paint. Whereas the auxiliary Asha team that came out, the Juves and that, a lot better to paint because they didn't have all of these little trinkets and stuff hanging off of them, and they were a lot better to paint. They still had a lot of good detail to them, but it wasn't too much. And I think TT Combat have hit that nail on the head perfectly, where these models aren't a chore to paint, but when you've got, like, even if you just base coat, wash, a little bit of highlight in there or a dry brush or something, the detail is there, it's picked out really simply, and it doesn't matter what your painting level is, the models do the heavy lifting, I would say, because they're just beautifully sculpted.
Oh, definitely. And although resin traditionally isn't very forgiving to the novice modeler or the novice painter, because it's a little bit difficult to work with at times if you've never worked with it before, you can really produce a very good standard of a miniature with very little painting skill level, as you said, because details are brought up enough. They're not distracting. Let's take Sir Flexer or Sir Poser from the Keep as a prime example of this. What is there to them? Skin,
a little bit of chainmail on the paws and pouches,
and a helmet. That's it.
And a helmet, yeah.
That's it. Metal and skin, and a feather. That's it. But you could just, as long as you've got that good base of skin, a good wash, and then a good dry brush. That's it. You've done 2/3 of that model. And with the detail that they had and the poses and how the muscles were brought out, it didn't look comical. That was the key thing I liked about it. It didn't look comical.
Well, that was because they based those models on me.
and they have asked you to stop sending.
And I will not.
So yeah, they're not comical, but the detail on them is enough that even as a novice-ish painter, you can still produce a really nice looking figure with very minimal effort, as long as you get like the good coverage. And it's a great they're great minis. And you look back looking back, we look back to the first models that they brought out for Rumblestam in the starter set, and you look at them and how they look now. It's cut. It's black and white, cut and dry, mate.
You can see there has been a massive, not style shift, but like the sculptors, they're obviously a lot more comfortable in what they're working with. Maybe it's just down to the design brief that they're given, but it's made a massive difference, whatever it is, and it's
working for them.
It's just working, yeah.
Anything else new and shiny for you, Christopher?
Yes. I have some models that arrived.
Any Fallout today?
Not today. I purposely avoided putting any Fallout in. Although, tell you what, I will put a little bit of Fallout in because that's the gimmick. So some models I got from onlygames.co, which sounds like a dodgy website, but it's not. It's only only-games.co. Not sponsored. They do print it's like a marketplace for people who do STLs, and Only Games take a cut. The designers, they get their cut as well. And you buy the models and they'll 3D print it for you, and then it gets sent out to you. And I got a bunch of models that are definitely not alien. So yeah, they're basically alien. There's some essentially the Nostromo crew and a bunch of xenomorph-inspired aliens, including eggs, chestbursters. I've got some facehuggers coming, and some the Xenotemptress, which is based on the Perfected, which it's like the final stage of the black goo infection that you see in like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and in the Alien RPG, it's like got a feature in there, and in the Marvel Alien series, which I just pick up the annuals, and incredible series they've been doing with that. This like Temptress one, the Perfected, that shows up in one of the more recent ones. I don't think it's the latest annual, but the one before it. Fantastic looking model. It's like a real hybrid between human and xenomorph. It's got more of the human shape to it, but a lot of the Giga style flair to it. But my Fallout injection into this is I bought some Only Games Fallout models.
Nice.
Beginning of the year. One of them it's a digital only model from Modiphius, and it's the Vault Girl with the super sledge. It was taken from an image for one of the DLCs. I think it was the Contraptions. No, not the Contraptions. The Vault Tech Workshop. The Modiphius did a model of that, and it was never like a physical release. It was just the STL. So I saw that was on there, so I got that immediately. And a Fallout inspired model from Tiny Furniture, and I've bought a bunch of their scenery stuff a couple of times now, and they do really good sculpting, so I had to pick that up as well. That's my Fallout injection.
Nice. Well, it needed to be done.
And there's one thing that I haven't added onto our little docket, little fourth wall break. We have notes. You might not think it all the time, because we get sidetracked very easily.
We're like conversational magpies, aren't we?
Yeah, we've got this is why it's called new and shiny, because we are magpies. Have you seen the trailer for Alien Romulus?
I caught a bit of it. I haven't seen the whole thing yet. I am planning on it. I've got the kids knocking about a lot of the time, so I don't really
Mhm.
want to see them seeing like these trailers and then just not sleeping for a week. Um, it's,
It's,
can't be doing with that.
um, yeah, they've released the teaser trailer from it, and it looks alien. It's in the teaser trailer as it's pulling back through the corridor. Like I was getting Nostromo corridor vibes. They've got the look of that perfect. Because it's Fede Alvarez, he's directing it, and I mean he's got a good eye for horror. He did was it Don't Breathe, and he did
Yes.
the remake of Evil Dead. And you know I like bits of that Evil Dead film, and other bits I wasn't as sold on. But the directing of it, I thought, you know, spot on. This, I think he's going to be a good choice for the director of it. And looking at the credits at the end of the trailer as well, you've got some pretty big names on there. So the guy that's doing the music, he did the music in the more recent Blade Runner film,
Okay.
amongst a bunch of other films with like really good soundtracks. The editor, he worked on a bunch of the Dark Knight trilogy, and
So some big names there. So personally, Chris, I don't think you can get newer and shinier than Kickstarter.
definitely.
So I'm gonna sort of take it's gonna be a very Kickstarter vibe for my new and shiny stuff. -1. So I was a backer. I'll start with the ones that's kind of just come out to retail. I'm a massive nerd when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender, the TV series, not the live action series, not the M Night Shyamalan dumpster fire of a film, the original cartoon series that was on Nickelodeon. Now I did like the live action series. I'll tell you that I did like it, but I backed a Kickstarter by Magpie Games for a tabletop RPG game that's called Avatar Legends. And what that is you create a character within the universe, and then you'll play out stories. You don't necessarily play as the Avatar. You more create a character who will exist in that universe in different eras of the lore that they've got. Now I backed that. Good God, probably about two-ish years ago. And it's sort of it came out to retail quite recently. You can get it on Zatu Games. I know there's one place you can get it. And it is the style. The book itself is a great read, and everything about it really does fit in well with that. So if you are a fan of the Avatar, the Legend of Aang series of Nickelodeon, or the Legend of Korra. It does really fit in with that, and I got the full shebang. I've got the cloth mat, the White Lotus tile. I'm saying these things to Chris, and he's just sort of like, "Cool."
Yeah,
Like, I don't know. I don't know what any of this
I've
is.
never watched Avatar, but I have just brought up the Magpie Games website and I'm having a look at the RPG, which is dangerous for me because I love just collecting RPGs apparently.
Chris,
And
there's one thing on Magpie Games that will tickle your pickle. It's called Magic Cats. There's a game.
yes.
Have you seen it? You've just seen it.
Wizard
Cats.
Kittens.
Yeah, that's it. Wizard Kittens.
Oh
Yes. So
my god. And there's a teddy.
So Avatar Legends takes you through many different areas of the lore of history of the island, and you can play as any number. You can either play as all the elements, or you can be a swordsman. And it's more of a RPG that is play to see what happens sort of thing, not much like in D&D where it's a little bit more, not so much rigid and structured where you're trying to play towards a goal. It's more based on play to see what happens. So that's come out to retail now with other expansions coming out. That's cool. My other Kickstarter thing is I backed a game last year that was by a company called Brotherwise Games, and the game is called Dungeon Kart. It's a board game, and basically it's like a Mario Kart-esque board game. You've got like a little dashboard that's your car, and you have different gears, and you have a little cart that goes round, and you pick up spells, coins, things like, much like Mario Kart, but you're kind of playing as the bad guys, not so much the good guys. And it's got like the little tiles that you put out, and I backed that heavily because I thought if it's coming from the States, the likelihood of me getting any of this afterwards, I'll just back a lot of it now.
Yeah, and so hopefully there'll be like the like distribution centers, Europe and stuff like that. So,
and I should be receiving that this year. So it's just the sort of, there's not even any miniatures. So the pieces are like little acrylic carts, and you have like your character slots into the top of it. So it has the character on the side, and all of it's push out card. All of it lives in the box it comes in, and it's just a fun little game that I kind of caught it. What was I doing? I caught it on Facebook, and it came up, and I was like, I'll look into that. And I looked into it, watched a video, and I thought, do you know what? That looks like a good crack. My son really likes Mario Kart. He's played I don't know if you've heard of this board game, Chris, Formula D. Have you heard of that?
Not heard of that one.
So Formula D is like a board game, but it's like racing, like Formula One. And you've got to like brake, change down gears. You change up gears to get bigger dice.
Oh, I'm just looking it up there. I've seen that played on No Rules Board.
Yeah, so I've got that game as well, and it's kind of, I thought Dungeon Kart would be like a more Mario Kart way, and he'll probably enjoy that as well. And my final thing for new and shiny is I just sort of came across this, and it was genuinely by accident, and Chris will back me up on this. I was trying to make a tabletop ice hockey fantasy game, right? Because I do like ice hockey.
He was telling me a couple of months back, like you're planning and stuff. And I like a little bit of ice hockey as well. When I lived down in Leeds, I went to see Sheffield Steelers a few times. I've got a jersey.
So, in the process of me seeing if this had been done before, I came across a company in the States who are in the process of making, and it's they've got some concept figures so far. I showed Chris one of them, and it's a game that's called Slapshot Showdown. The annoying thing for me is when I was looking at how it's played, and I thought, damn, that is a lot simpler than what I came up with. And to put you into perspective, I think as far as I can understand it, it's a fantasy ice hockey game. There's monsters, humans, sort of that thing. It's very brutal, but it's all hex based. It's a very simple game. It is, not so much Blood Bowl. I'd say it's more Dread Ball-esque, like Dread Ball on ice. And from the videos that I've watched of the game, it does have that, because ice hockey is a very fast-paced game, and it'll be a very hard sport to replicate that pace. So if they can pull that aspect of it off, then they're onto a winner. I messaged them on Instagram because obviously I was quite interested in it, because they're based in Philadelphia. I asked, like, are you going to be shipping to the UK? And and they're at a point where it's just about to come to Kickstarter. They said that they don't really know because obviously about the cost of that. But I have been assured that if they aren't going to deliver to Europe or the UK, that they are going to have a sort of more STL pledge and things like that. So I would still be able to sort of get hold of it, which might be a shame if they don't deliver it, because sometimes I do like getting physical models. I don't have a 3D printer at the minute, but it is on the Christmas Santa's wish list to get a nice 3D printer. But yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. One of the figures, which is my favourite one at the minute, is almost like a big sort of ghoul looking or Frankensteinish looking character, just holding the referee up. And I think, do you know what? That's a bit of me. That
Yeah.
But I spoke to Chris about this, and I was unsure about whether to involve Kickstarter into new and shiny, because obviously sometimes Kickstarters don't always come through, especially when a company's somewhat unknown. I only tend to back things that by companies I know have done other things. Magpie Games, Mantic, TT Combat. They have historically produced what they said they were going to produce. When you sort of get into an unknown entity, then it becomes more of a gamble. So I wasn't 100% sure. But if you are interested in ice hockey, it is worth looking into. It's called Slapshot Showdown. It hasn't come to Kickstarter yet. It's coming to Kickstarter. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, new and shiny wise, there's not much else going on for me. But yeah, it's if you're interested in the Avatar Nickelodeon series that got brought out, and you like a tabletop role playing game, have a look at Avatar Legend. It's a nice little game.
The trinkets and stuff with that, like I say, I was looking on Magpie's website, and they look really nice, like just extras to have on your table and stuff like that.
So if you're listening to us on Spotify and you don't want to miss the next episode, why not subscribe?
And if you're listening to us on YouTube, why not drop us a like and subscribe? And weigh in with your thoughts on what we've mentioned, missed, or something for us to look at in the next episode in the comments below.
Well, and I think with that, it's a goodbye from him.
And it's a goodbye from him.